I've done so many videos on a 79 series Land Cruiser now about the pros, the cons. I've really covered every topic on the 79 series, and I really do love that vehicle. In saying that, I'm not one to really get attached to a vehicle. I've changed vehicles over the years many times. I do like building them as much as owning and using them. Of course, except for Lance. Lance won't go anywhere. That'll be mine forever. I'll have put too much blood, sweat and tears and the story behind that to ever let that go. So if I was going to sell the 79 series, what would I buy? Righto guys, this is a hard question, very hard question. It has so many things attached to it, like, you know, if I sell it, then I've got to think about what I'm going to be able to tow 3.5 ton with. I want that ability regardless of whether we have a caravan, a camper, a swag. You never know, in 6 months time you can change your mind, your circumstances will change and you'll need that 3.5 ton tow. You need to go and pick up another Land Cruiser out near Cobar somewhere. That's a good reason to have a 3.5 ton tow, I think. I don't think my wife thinks so, but anyway. So look, what dual cab on the market would I buy, or rather, what four-wheel drive would I buy? Doesn't have to be a dual cab. It can be a wagon. There are quite a few choices, but then in some respects, there aren't too many choices at all. So let's get into it, and I'll start talking about some of the models out there that are really popular and why me personally would or would not own one. Just before the 79 series, I had a dual cab Triton, pretty new model as a daily work vehicle. And look, it was a fantastic ute. I couldn't fold it, to be honest. It just did everything I needed to do. As far as a tow vehicle is concerned, the rear overhang on that is absolutely horrendous. It just doesn't make, that design doesn't make sense as a tow vehicle. Most dual cabs are bad anyway, including the 79 series, for that rear overhang and the distance between the rear axle and the tow ball. Other than that, the vehicle's fine and they're really good value for money. I just would not tow a massive caravan with it. They do have probably the most sensible tow rating though, I will say. At 3.1 tonne, that is their maximum, or correct me if I'm wrong, I know in my model it was, I think that is still correct to this day. 3.1 tonne is their maximum or thereabouts. But that means you can also have the car at maximum GVM. Whereas on most other dual cabs, once you reach the 3.5 tonne tow rating that they all seem to have now, it starts chewing into your actual GVM of your vehicle, down to the point where some of the models you can only have like 2 passengers in, and if you put a bag of cement in the back, you're over. So I think that's a ridiculous way of rating a vehicle. And that's the Triton. I probably wouldn't own a Triton to tow a massive caravan with. Next, the Navara. Look, I really haven't had a lot to do with Navaras. I have owned a D22, which really isn't even in the same realm as most of the other dual cabs. And look, they were cheaper to start with, so comparing apples to apples, they were always a cheaper vehicle, even when they were brand new. They were it was a little bit underpowered, and I haven't really had a lot to do with the new Navara. However, personally, it just wouldn't be for me. The Navara, same reason, big overhang. And look, the spring rear end in them, and I know some models do have a leaf rear end, the spring rear end of them was a great idea until you really put a heavy load on it or tried to tow with it. And it was just too softly set up. And a lot of that's got to do with that overhang again. Like most wagons are a spring rear end and they get them to tow really well, i.e. Land Cruiser. So there was no reason why the spring setup couldn't handle the weight and towing, but I think once you put the leverage of that long overhang on it, you would have had to have such a heavy spring rate for that to ever work. And I'm afraid to say, in a ute, I think leaves have proven to work and they continue to do so. So Navara is out for me. Let's put in a group the cheaper Chinese, Thailand, Korean utes. I know a lot of the bigger brands are also manufactured in Thailand, but you know, Great Wall, Ssangyong, all those. Personally, I'm going to be a brand snob here and say I just wouldn't buy one. I wouldn't even test drive one. I think resale value is pretty important. Like, to save a buck now only to, you know, have it cost you later on down the track is not a good financial decision. And I'm going to, look, there's a lot of these comments in this video are going to upset people. I realise that. These are my opinions. This isn't gospel. I'm happy to be wrong about things. But after our experience touring and four-wheel driving, these are how I would rate them and how I would select a new vehicle. So that's how this video is to be taken. I'm happy to take any comments. I'm happy to take positive and negative feedback. So please prove me wrong. I just wouldn't buy one of those vehicles, mainly for resale. Plus, until recently, they have been generally quite a bit underpowered to the competition. Again, apples for apples, they are also a lot cheaper to purchase new. So I understand how they are attractive. I just personally wouldn't buy one. Righto, let's talk about arguably the most popular ute in Australia. There's always two just fighting for that top spot, the Hilux and the Ranger. We'll start with the Ranger, and geez, they're getting a flogging in the news at the moment. Every time someone brings out a new model, and I'm not just going to pick on Ford here, most car companies, when they redo a new model, they just get creamed in the media when something goes wrong. And Ford have been in the media for this so many times, but look, to be fair to them, they do try and update their vehicles and add new technology more so than a lot of the other brands. So although they have their issues, like, it's probably got a fair bit to do with the complexity of trying to change things and improve on things more regularly than most. The 3.2 litre Ranger had its fair share of problems. Look, I'm not going to go into them. I've got mechanic mates that you talk about these things and they see it firsthand. And the Ranger had massive automatic gearbox issues. And look, there's people out there with Rangers, and this is a really scary topic because I don't want to lose viewers out of this. And they love them. And I know people that have had Rangers that had blown motors at 100,000 Ks and went and bought another Ford Ranger. They are that good a vehicle. And personally, I don't think I could own one for remote touring. I've just seen and heard it too many times. And although you could buy a vehicle and say it's under warranty, which, fair enough, and Ford have, from all accounts I've heard, have actually replaced and fixed engines out of warranty. That goes to say how many they're doing. But for remote touring, whether you're in warranty or not, the fact that it could ruin your holiday when you're all the way across the other side of the country was enough for me to rule it out. We did actually look at it, and they drive so nice and they've got so much power. But ultimately, I steered away from it, and that's how I ended up in the 79. So I went from test driving a Ford Ranger that felt like a luxury vehicle, and they were beautiful, to the day I drove the 79 series. I never test drove the 79 series. I bought it, picked it up from the dealer, and on the way home down the highway, I remember thinking to myself, holy Jesus, this thing is slow and basic. So that's the quandary. Sometimes you just have to sacrifice so much to justify in your head why you bought that, or why you went the way you did. So although the Ranger is such a beautiful car to drive and economical and have heaps of power, the reliability issues were just too much for me to overlook. Righto, let's talk about the other biggie, the Toyota Hilux. Ford and Toyota, for the dual cabs, usually fight it out most times. Look, the Toyota Hilux it's a Toyota Hilux. They're unbreakable, right? That'll also get a few people talking, no doubt. Look, I just think it's a very unexciting vehicle. I like them. I would own one. I really would, but it's not desirable to me to own one. They're reliable. That's it. And look, the current model has had a few little niggling issues. You don't hear a lot about it though. Generally speaking, they're very good. They're a nice ute to drive. I have driven them. They're economical. They got enough power. And the way I'm saying all this, I think you get where I'm coming from. They're just not exciting at all. The 79 series shortcomings are actually what make it. Whether it be good or bad, it at least sparks some emotion. The Hilux, it's not for me. I think it's a fantastic vehicle. A lot of people out there have them. They'll bash them up every day and they'll probably keep going forever. Again, that's debatable to some, I know. So yeah, the Hilux, I probably would own one. I wouldn't get really excited about it. So that's on the fence. That's a maybe. The last sort of dual cabs in the market, I don't think I've missed any. any of the main ones anyway. So D-Max BT50, we're going to put them together. They share all the same running gear and engine, and I have been in the last shape D-Max quite a bit, and they are just a solid, reliable motor. They're not all that fast, they're not all that exciting, but they just cop abuse like you wouldn't believe, and they are starting to fast become the reliable ute, and possibly overtaking the Hilux for that. You hear a lot of good things about a D-Max, very rarely hear anything ever going majorly wrong with them. So that's why it would be top of the list for me, and I'd probably just put the Mazda that little bit further ahead, based purely on looks, which is very subjective. I think it's a good design, the current Mazda, with a nice bull bar on it and a bit of gear on it. It's a schmick looking ute. I think it's a bit more exciting than the rest. Combined with that really reliable running gear, as far as a dual cab ute goes, I think that would be the one. In saying that, I would not tow 3.5 tonne with it. I think they are way at their limit at 3.5 tonne. If you could tow to the maximum 3 tonne with it, it would give you a good payload in the vehicle still. I think that is a perfect combination and would pretty much do anything around Australia, as in four-wheel driving, towing, being able to live out of it. They're big enough to do that. They're comfortable enough. It would be a good compromise if you kept it at an absolute maximum of 3 tonne. 2.5 would be ideal. Look, I know I'm contradicting myself because we've got this massive 3.5 tonne caravan, but in the perfect world, I'd love that van. What we designed it to be 2.5, 3 tonne would be bloody fantastic. Reality, it's not. That's why I ended up with the 79 series. Look, I haven't towed 3.5 tonne with one of these dual cabs. I will say that. I just believe and feel that I know that the Land Cruiser weighs nearly 3.9 on its own, and I just like that feeling that the car is as heavy, if not heavier, than what you're towing. It's a bit of an old school way of thinking, and look, it did prove us right. It towed beautifully and straight. May not be the most comfortable car, but it was nice and straight down the highway. So out of all the Japanese or smaller dual cab utes, I think the Mazda would be a win for me if I ended up going that way. Look, this was about dual cabs mostly. We're going to get into the American utes. The 1500s, in the Chevs and the Ford F-150 and the Ram 1500s. Look, I can't say that I would own a massive petrol vehicle like that. And everyone says they're pretty good on fuel, they're all right. Look, I've owned a petrol four-drive before, and they probably are pretty good on fuel until you modify them and put 3.5 tonne behind them. I have spoken to people when we're on the road that we're getting upwards of 30 to 35 litres on a regular basis, towing a similar van to what we had with a slightly upsized tyre, basically the same modifications that we've got on our 79 series. After owning a petrol four-wheel drive in the past and speaking to people, there's no way that they're going to use the same or less fuel than a diesel. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it, and that's why I probably wouldn't go down the petrol American truck route. Also, I still like to get off the beaten track and do a bit of forward driving. I think they're a bit big, and look, I'm going to say that they're going to be slightly more fragile than a 79 series. Very controversial, I know. Moving up from that, you've got your 2500s and 3500 series. So basically your American heavy duties. If all you need to do was tow 3.5 tonne plus, there will be nothing better than that. Like, those things are just powerhouses, massive diesel V8s. I reckon that would be awesome to have if you had bucket loads of money, just purely as a tow vehicle. Useless as a four drive, they are just massive. Like, I just don't think the tracks have ever been designed around something that big. We did it in Arnhem, went bush bashing in the 79 series. You just wouldn't have fit anything bigger down these tracks. The tracks have been designed around that same size vehicle in Australia for a long time. All of a sudden we're bringing in heaps of these American trucks. They'd be hard to park, they'd be hard to four drive with, they'd be generally just hard to live with. Even getting them in your garage would be a problem. So as far as versatility goes, I think the only thing that they would truly be good for is be super comfortable and be super comfortable with over 3.5 tonne in tow. Right, most of this was about dual cabs. I am going to touch on the other big two towers. The Patrol, which I really like the idea of. We did play with the idea of putting Megan into a Patrol instead of me getting the 79, her using the four drive as a daily car and our tow rig. We ultimately turned away from it. Look, and it wasn't because of the petrol motor at the time, it was more because we wanted to move to a ute. They are a really, really good car. However, I did join a few Facebook pages and forums, and like I do with every vehicle, I do my research. They do have quite a few niggling issues, electrical problems, paint issues, and look, they probably all may have been fixed now. I don't know, because we sort of went a different route with that anyway. And to be honest, I was still willing to take a gamble on those vehicles. I'm pretty proactive with fixing things myself with vehicles, caravan, you name it. So yeah, and then moving along with that, 3.5 ton behind one of them. We spoke to people on the road. You're not going to see much under 30 litres per 100 in most driving conditions, and most driving conditions in the outback are either windy, or if you're on the east coast, it's hilly. Very rarely you'll just get that nice run down the highway where you get a light tailwind. It just doesn't happen. You generally got a 40k headwind as soon as you get inland Australia. So yeah, fuel consumption is an issue, and range to go with it. And the other thing I will touch on with a petrol vehicle is, and we have had one, we had an FJ Cruiser, we had long range tanks in it, and I know it's a lot smaller vehicle, but we were towing a lot smaller weight, and it was very thirsty. Having a long range tank in an unleaded vehicle, I don't know, it does play on your mind. It's like driving around in a nuclear bomb. Like, it's a lot of unleaded, trying to refuel in the heat. Yeah, it is something that you think about. Whether it's to be worried about or not, it did play on my mind a little bit. Diesel is that little bit safer. Righto, last off the list is obviously the Land Cruiser. I'm going to put the 200 and 300 in to make them different cars, because they are, and the 200 built a reputation as being arguably the number one tow vehicle in Australia. If you had the folding stuff to buy one, that was. They weren't always so expensive, but in recent years, it's just spiraled out of control. Look, the 300 series is really unproven. I personally just love the design of the 200. I like the look of it. I own a 79 with a VDJ. I like the motor. The 200 series is better again. They're smoother. They're twin turboed. Ultimately the same motor, but just a better spec level and a lot more power. Obviously the automatic would be fantastic in a lot of conditions. The comfort of a 200. They have built a reputation to be good, because I think they are good. They tick all the boxes if you're going to tow something big and tour the country in. So what would I buy? I would find it very hard to not buy a 79 series again. After all that, and for all the same reasons, to be able to tow 3.5 ton comfortably, and when I say comfortably, that is very subjective. I know that you will say they're not very comfortable to drive in, but I mean comfortably as in it feels safe to do so, outweighs most of every other aspect of the vehicle. Not only that, the reliability and the simplicity of that 79 series. Like, I'm restoring an old HJ47 1981 Land Cruiser, and trying to make it reliable again, and like what I'm trying to get at is people build these old school cars and put modern running gear in them and just go, how cool is that? And spend bulk coin and money doing it. The 79 series to me is one of those you can buy off the showroom floor with a warranty, turnkey, brand new. It is a retro vehicle with a modern driveline in it, as in the VDJ 79. So I think that's just so cool and unique, and it's going to be the last of its kind. There'll be nothing else like that after that's gone. There's nothing else on the market. Like, you got the Ineos Grenadier, I don't know how to even pronounce it. They've been trying to get that thing launched for so many years now. You got the old Land Rover Defender is gone now. Those older, simpler looking vehicles, and yeah, I think the Land Cruiser is unique, and it's got the reliability to go with it. So although there's a lot of negatives, I would find it hard to go past the 79 series again. But time will tell. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget, you only live once. Get out there in whatever four-wheel drive you own and bloody enjoy it.